Hello, my name's Scott Ampleford and I am the composer and narrator for the animated adventures of the Doctor Puppet right here on YouTube. This is a special behind-the-scenes documentary featurette sort of thing in which I will be showing you the process of scoring an episode of Doctor Puppet as well as the narration because I do that as well. So, after the success of the Doctor Puppet Christmas special, How the Doctor Puppet Saved Christmas, which had been animated pretty much entirely by Elisa, I think, just in her flat in New York, the Nerdist got in touch and decided they wanted to see a series. So, production started on a series. I was brought on board again originally just to provide the score. And then when Elisa realised that the Doctor Puppet doesn't speak and she wanted a narrator, I was approached purely because of this that you're hearing right now, the British accent. I'm the only Brit actually working on the Doctor Puppet series. Not prejudiced or anything, as far as I'm aware. It's simply due to the fact that Elisa knows people who do certain things, and that's that. And I happened to get the job purely by chance in the first place, so on and so forth, and etc. So basically, she decided I was British, I have a British accent, I should put my British accent on the Doctor Puppet series. End of story. And that's pretty much it. When composing music for Doctor Puppet, the tunes become very important, and you have to compose themes for possibly anything. In the Doctor Puppet series so far, we've had themes for the TARDIS, we've had themes for River Song, we've had themes for the Light Beam, but the two most important themes that the show uses are the Doctor Puppet theme and the Doctor Puppets theme. One represents the show, the other represents the character. You'll recognise them both. The Doctor Puppet show theme sounds like this. And it uses chords underneath like this. And it was originally written not as the Doctor Puppet theme, but actually as the Snowman theme, as I have it written down here on the original sheet music when I was writing the themes down. And it represented originally the Snowman for the Christmas special. Just that sense of sort of childlike innocence that it sort of conveys just seemed to work very well for that. And then when the series progressed, it just seemed a fitting theme to sort of surround the whole series, and has become probably one of the most recognisable. The other theme is the Doctor Puppet's theme, the theme that I use for the character of the Doctor Puppet. And that theme sounds like this. And that's used all over the place, and was designed to be this sort of very quirky, happy sort of thing. Was written for episode 1, The Red X, and was influenced by the cityscape of New York, as the beginning of the episode is set in New York. So one of the most famous pieces of music associated with New York is Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, and so it was based loosely on that sort of principle. The full version is a sort of bossa nova, sort of quirky version, and you don't hear that version of it until episode 3, The Doctor in the Garden, but the full version goes like this. And these themes are used in various guises, but all of it then boils down to the instrumentation. Once you've composed the tunes, the next important thing you have to think of is what instruments those tunes are going to be played on. So far in Dr. Puppet, well, I say so far, episodes 1, 2 and 3, we've primarily had a very standard orchestral based arrangement. All those orchestral sounds are played by hand by myself into Logic Pro 9, just on a keyboard, because we don't have the time nor the money to get a full orchestra onto our recordings. However, as the recordings have been progressing, we've started to sort of get a little bit more interesting and try to use different things and try to have a secret weapon for every episode. Episode 1, we had to sort of establish the tunes and establish what the show was doing. So episode 1 has a fairly bog standard orchestral soundtrack. But from that point on, the subsequent episodes, we've tried to do something different with them. Episode 2, for example, was the first use of a choir. The choir I used, I believe, was Cine Sample's Voxos, for any music nerds out there who are interested, which is a contact plugin that I use alongside Logic. And then all of the other orchestral samples that I use are native to Logic Pro 9. I did consider using some of my other libraries. I have action strings, and I have LA scoring strings and things like that. And while a lot of them sound very nice and very professional and this, that and everything else, they didn't quite capture that slightly childlike look that the show has. So the slightly more basic sounds that are native to Logic seem to work perfectly. And so the Voxos choir was the first step away from Logic that we did, because the Christmas special was all Logic and episode 1 was all Logic. Then episode 2 we had the Voxos. And it just adds a different colour into the score, and all that magical floating around in space stuff just feels a little bit more magical and floaty aroundy and spacey. Then we got to episode 3, which was set entirely in this little walled garden, and I knew we had to somehow get a different, more rural sort of feel. So we started basically with the orchestral arrangement, but I sort of toned it back and ended up finding our secret weapon for that episode, which is this. I don't know which camera is going to be best to looking at that. This maybe. This is a melodica. It's a reed instrument, much like an organ or an accordion or a harmonica, but it's got keyboard keys, and also it's got a mouthpiece for you to power with your own breath, which means you sort of get that slightly sort of organy sort of feel, but more expressive, because you're using your own breath to do it. And this instrument was used all over the score to episode 3, and this is what it sounds like. And probably you've noticed the instrument most in the section where the 11th Doctor meets the 9th Doctor, and you get to hear that full arrangement of the Bossa Nova Dr. Puppet's theme. Can't really see what you're doing with it. So that was the secret weapon for episode 3, which allowed us to take a step away from this bog standard orchestral stuff that had come before. I've just finished composing the score to episode 4, which is a very special episode and a very special and very different score. When Elisa approached me buy it, the first thing she said was different, and the second thing she said was she wanted it to scare children. And so I didn't immediately then think of writing scary music, because scaring children is different to just scaring adults. Children are scared by different things for different reasons. So I thought back to what scared me when I was a child. And there was a couple of things. There was Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds album, and Wendy Carlos's Switched on Bach, which was music that you knew and recognised as classical music, but played on a modular synthesizer. Now I've got a modular synthesizer set up here, and this was my secret weapon for Dr. Puppet episode 4. I would probably say that 80% of this score for this episode was done purely on this machine. This is a synthesizers.com modular, which is made by a man called Roger Arick in Texas, and they're based on the classic Moog modular synthesizers, which were some of the first modular synthesizers. They just sound amazing. They're wonderful to use. They've got that wonderful analog warmth to them that you can't really get from any emulation or modulation. There are a couple of software synths within the score to episode 4. There is the Arturia Mini Moog, which ends up performing these sort of string sounds. And also it performs a few brassy sounds. There are 2 tracks of brassy sounds that were made by the Moog Modular, but I needed some polyphonic elements, so modelled up a similar patch on the Mini Moog software instrument. That sounds like this. And then there's a organ which has never been used in Dr. Puppet yet. We've got drum kit and bass guitar. We've just got all sorts of stuff in here, as well as the full orchestral arrangement. I look forward to doing more scores for Dr. Puppet and in general. I hope you've enjoyed this little sort of behind the scenes on how I do things. If there's anything else you'd like to know, if I haven't covered anything that you'd be interested in, feel free to contact myself or Elisa. Leave a comment down in the doobly-doo below, and thank you.